Right, good morning everybody. Welcome to this Licensing Committee meeting. My name is Councillor James Gibson. I'm Chair of the Licensing Committee. Just to remind everybody that this meeting is live streamed via webcast. And also just to remind everybody that we have our autumnal refresher training at the end of the meeting. So don't dash off as soon as I close the meeting. It was on the email that Helen sent round, so you have had prior warning. And just before I start, I just want to say a massive thank you to Councillor Wilson, who is now not on the committee. He's left and gone to bigger and better things. And welcome to Councillor Holroyd, who is back with us again after a year break. So welcome back, Stephen. Nice to have you with us. I'll go around now and ask members to introduce themselves, starting with Councillor Raleigh, please.
Good morning, everybody. Councillor Asghar Ali, representing Kipton and Hare Hills.
Good morning, Councillor Kate Hay, Farnley and Wortley Ward.
Good morning, Councillor Jordan Bowden, Roundhay Ward.
Morning everyone, Councillor Tom Hinchcliffe, Bramley and Stanley Ward.
Good morning everyone, Councillor Sharon Hamilton, Meanwood and Moortown Ward.
Good morning, Councillor Holroyd, Ardsley and Robin Hood, and it's good to be back on the committee.
Luke Farley, Labour Councillor for Bermondsey and Richmond Hill.
Hello everyone, Councillor Lisa Martin from Roundhay Ward.
Good morning, Councillor Pogson Golden from Middleton Ward.
Good morning, Councillor Dawn Seary, Pudsey Ward.
Good morning, Councillor Neil Buckley, Woodley Ward.
Brilliant, thank you very much. I'll now ask officers to introduce themselves, starting with Rob, please.
Good morning, Robert Brown, Legal Services.
Good morning, Sue Duckworth from Entertainment Licensing.
Good morning everybody, Matthew Nelson on behalf of Entertainment Licensing.
Good morning everybody, John Mulcahy, Chief Officer Elections and Regulatory.
Good morning everybody, Jason Singh, Head of Service.
Good morning, I'm Helen Gray, I'm the Clerk to the Committee.
Ed, do you want to introduce yourself, mate?
Morning all, sorry I'm late, plumbing disaster at home. Lovely to be here, Ed Carlisle, Hands on Riverside.
Just to remind everybody that I bought far too many mince pies, so actually rather than just having one, I'm going to encourage people to have two, please, throughout the meeting. It'll give you a nice sugar rush and engender a better debate throughout the meeting, so get them down, you please. Agenda items number 1 to 5 then, please, Helen.
Thank you, Chair. Under agenda item number 1, there are no appeals against refusal of inspection of documents. Agenda item 2, there are no items which require the exclusion of the press and the public. Item 3, there's no late items today. Item 4, could I ask members to declare any interests that they may have, please? I can't see any, so thank you. Item number 5, apologies for absence have been received from Councillor Downs and from Councillor Senior. Thank you, Chair.
Excellent, thank you very much. In which case we shall move on to agenda item number 6, which is the minutes of the previous meeting. Anybody take any umbrage with them, any amendments? I see nobody indicating either yes or no, so I presume that they're okay to go through, and we shall move on to agenda item number 7, which is response to licensing reforms, call for evidence, and I'll invite Sue to introduce this item, please.
Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to present this report on the Leeds City Council response to the government's call for evidence on licensing reforms. This was... How's that? Is that a bit better? So this came with very little notice. We weren't aware that we were going to get a call for evidence, and we had 4 weeks to prepare a response, which is why this is the first time that Licensing Committee is seeing it. The government's proposals aim to modernise the Licensing Act, reduce regulatory burdens and promote economic growth. So while we welcome the intent to streamline processes and support the hospitality sector, our response highlights the importance of maintaining the integrity of the 4 licensing objectives, which are public safety, crime prevention, public nuisance and protection of children from harm. So let me briefly summarise our position on the key proposals. The first proposal was a national licensing policy framework, which is on page 19 of your papers. This was seeking to establish a legal framework for alcohol entertainment, late night refreshment. It would help to deliver a balanced licensing system, and it would do it by way of like executive orders, sort of, notices. We used to get them with Home Office circulars back in the old day. I think they talk about bringing those back in. Our concern really was about the legal status of the National Licensing Policy Framework, where it would sit and how it would interact with the Act, the legislation and the statutory guidance that we have at the moment. Would it override it? Would it, you know, where does it sit in the hierarchy? We felt that we need clear direction to avoid confusion and to ensure that our local discretion is preserved. The next was the economic growth as a licensing objective. So this was to add a fifth licensing objective of economic growth, and we didn't support this proposal because we were concerned about the conflict between economic growth and public protection. The Licensing Act has always been about public protection, hence the 4 licensing objectives, and there could be a case where you're looking at something that would be good for economic growth but would not be good for public protection, and we would be concerned about the conflict between those two priorities and which takes precedence. So that's what we've reflected in our response. The next item was a licensing condition amnesty. This is where licensees can look at their license, look at all the redundant conditions on it, and then apply to us to have them removed. Now, they already have this facility. It's called a minor variation. We've had it for about 10 years. It works very well, and we have lots of licensees that apply to amend their licenses by removing old and redundant conditions that way. It's a quick process, takes 15 days start to finish, and it costs them £89. It's, you know, it's cheap, it's quick. We can't see the need for a licensing condition amnesty. For us, as officers, it would create massive resource implications if we had several thousand applications to remove conditions all in one go. We much prefer the minor variation process, which means that we can sort of like pace ourselves and deal with it as they come in, rather than have a set time when people would have an amnesty. They're asking again if we would support removing the notice requirement for putting a newspaper advert an advert in the paper. We have always supported this, and we have lobbied the government on this before a number of times. I'm not sure if you're aware, the Yorkshire Evening Post now charges £2,500 for a newspaper advert, and the Harrogate Advertiser, which is our local-ish newspaper, the Ackrell Group, charges £1,500. It's a massive amount of money for a licensee to pay. Especially as we're all aware, people don't read about licence applications in the newspaper. They see a blue notice on the premises. They use our public access system. I think the government is thinking about perhaps putting in some kind of an online requirement, but we would be concerned if they were just going to move it from a printed newspaper to an online newspaper, because that would attract the same fees as people are already paying. If they want to support business, just remove the requirement altogether. We believe that the notice and the online advertising through public access is plenty sufficient. They're talking again about increasing the number of temporary event notices to take it back to the COVID position, which was 20 events over 26 days. At the moment, they can have 15 tens over 21 days. That was removed. The COVID provision was pulled back last year, so we reduced the numbers back down again, and they're talking about extending them again. Our argument about this is that the only people that are using their full entitlement are those that are trying to get around the licence conditions. And for me, it's a case of make a variation to your application, let everybody have a say on that variation. They're talking about agent of change principle. This is something that is in planning at the moment, or currently in planning. They've been talking about putting it into licensing for quite a number of years and haven't actually got round to it yet. The agent of change is basically, putting it really simply, is who came first. So if you've got a pub that is a music venue that makes noise, then if somebody builds flats next door to it, it's for the builder to put the soundproofing in, not to expect the music venue to do so. We support that. There is a few recommendations on here around blanket policies and core hours, evidence and data protocol and festivals and events, and to be perfectly honest, there's not enough detail in the call for evidence for us to try and work out what they're talking about. You'll see from our response, we've been fairly clear that the problems that they are describing in the call for evidence aren't problems that we experience in Leeds. And then finally, there's a bit of a discussion about pavement licences and reforming pavement licences again. They have only just reformed pavement licences, so they're talking about extending them so that they're licensed at last in perpetuity and so on and so forth. We've discussed this with our city centre management colleagues and they've provided a response on that. They favour retaining the 1-year licence because it allows them to look at it afresh each year. So, in conclusion, while we welcome the reform, it must be balanced, it must be clearly defined and adequately resourced. We would say that there is not enough detail in this call for evidence for us to get too excited about it. We will see more as the ideas are developed and we will receive further consultation, in which case we'll be able to go back a little bit more robustly at that point. If members want to make any further comments or make any suggestions, and we do have the opportunity of writing to the Minister should we feel that necessary. Thank you.
Brilliant, thanks Sue. So we only had 2 weeks notice about this call for evidence, so we've not had a chance to go to the sort of full committee. Now's the chance to have a say. And we can always submit further evidence, or I can write to the Minister, whatever the committee wants to do. We've talked at length over the past few years around some of the gaps in the Licensing Act 2003, and that was reflected in the call for evidence. I made sure that it was already in anyway. Sue had obviously done a very good job. Just to reassure people, I'm not going to go over that now because some of the gaps in the Licensing Act were quite sensitive in that they provided opportunities for people we don't want to advertise opportunities for, but we've highlighted those. Obviously, we want to support business. That's really important. But you know, the team here at the licensing team here have the experience of practicing the Licensing Act and sort of live with it every day. So there are some gaps in the proposals that I think that on the ground experience we were able to see those, and that was reflected in the response as well. So our response is certainly not anything but supportive of the industry, but where there are gaps, I think they've been highlighted. I'll take questions now. Ed, you were the first to indicate.
So thank you, Sue, for your response. It feels like a really good, robust response. I just wondered if we had compared notes with other local authorities, other core cities in particular, because presumably if we're all singing from the same hymn sheet, that will resonate more significantly with the national government.
Yes, we sit on the Local Government Association Policy Forum, and we had a meeting with other local authorities before we finalised our response, so that we are all in concert.
Neil, please.
Thank you, Chair. Page 21, list any other themes for inclusion. And in here was a suggestion that there should be an additional objective focused on public health. And it says here, such as community health and well-being. Well, this came up, didn't it, a few meetings ago. And I said at the time that I was broadly supportive of this, except we should not include the phrase and well-being, because it was really a meaningless phrase. It doesn't mean anything in terms of legalities, if you like. So I think based on community health, is a good thing, but I'm not sure about the well-being.
Yeah, agree. We can, if we have any further discussions about it, we will remove that.
Okay.
Thanks. I've got a couple of points, Chair, if that's all right. I'll just go through them. So on page 22, sorry, I'll move back to page 22 at the top. There's a line in there about saying that we don't believe that licensing and public protection is a barrier to economic growth in Leeds, and I fully support that. The following sentence, which starts with however, so we definitely need to remove that word. Licence holders have fed back to us other issues. I'm not sure that we've got enough evidence for that statement about other impacts of other government policy, or that it's appropriate in our response here. It doesn't seem particularly relevant. I think that should go. In the following, and also we know that people's leisure behaviour activities, especially younger people, are changing, and that will always be the case. So I think that that might maybe have an impact on some areas of the licensed trade rather than government policy, perhaps. And we certainly don't have enough evidence on either side for that. In the next paragraph, it's just a grammatical thing that we can remove all the howevers and it will still make sense. I don't think, in fact, I think it makes it not make sense to have however in there. On page 24, this is something that's come up at recent subcommittees as well.
Councillor Hay, can I just say, this has already been submitted.
Yeah,
so
all right.
This is an opportunity to scrutinise it in terms of resubmitting it.
Okay,
so.
well, just for future. But I think the additional point about, we shouldn't be theorising as to other areas of government business, really. So I think we should also add that premises licence should be renewed on change of ownership, because there's been an issue at recent subcommittees where people have been asked for future proofing of licensing conditions in places like the Otley Run. Because if the business fails or sells up, then on that change of ownership, unintended consequences could be a completely different kind of business setting up. I think that's something that would be a useful addition to that renewal. And I would like to support the suggestion that public health become a licensing objective. I think that's really important. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haig. Do you want to respond to what you can of that? So obviously, bearing in mind that the call for evidence has already been submitted, so some of the stuff can't really talk to.
As I said to Councillor Buckley, this is the very, very early stages. We will get further consultation on the matters that they want to bring forward. So when we do, and hopefully it will be a longer consultation than one we got for this, I'll reflect that. I'll keep a note and reflect your comment.
I think some of the comments in the call for evidence reflect the sort of partnership that we feel that we have with local licensees as well, in that we've been fed back, and you're quite right about evidence and whether or not there's any quantitative evidence for some of the assertions in that call for evidence. I guess it's anecdotal and qualitative that's been included in there. Whether or not that should be that sort of evidence is up for debate. But I think there's an attempt to be balanced on understanding the concerns around where there may be risks to the public with some of the proposals, but at the same time supportive of local business and local economy that we want to support in Leeds to thrive, as it's an important part of our economy.
Sorry, Chair, can I just come out? I fully support that we should be working with our partners in local businesses. I just feel that that's not the experience across the whole sector. And certainly bearing in mind the appearance of a recent subcommittee, I don't believe that they're suffering financially due to government policy in other areas.
It has been submitted because of the time frame, so an endorsement at this point is was essentially given a stamp to something that's already been sent off, but it's there nonetheless. Note the potential implications of the proposed reforms on licensing operations and public protection. Support further engagement with stakeholders as reform proposals develop. Are we happy with? I think we can go with all of those. Is everybody happy to go with all of the recommendations? Yeah. Thank you. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 8 then, which is the CIA consultation outcomes and revised assessment. Over to Sue again.
Thank you, Chair, members. Right, so I'm pleased to present to you the outcome of the recent public consultation on the review of the cumulative impact assessment and to outline some proposed revisions for the next 3 years. The consultation, which was held throughout October, attracted strong engagement from residents, ward members and businesses. We received over 50 responses, and I have to say that is absolutely unprecedented. Normally 50, over 50, 54 I think. 40 of which were from Headingley residents, and this is an excellent response to the consultation. You will see we've reproduced all the consultation responses at the end of the CIA. So the responses demonstrate there's a clear and consistent support for retaining the existent cumulative impact areas across Leeds. Respondents highlighted the continuing importance of these policies in managing the cumulative impact of licensed premises on the licensing objectives. However, there was a significant emerging theme from the consultation, which is the Headingley CIA. There was overwhelming support for extending the Headingley CIA boundary along the Otley Road to Hyde Park Corner. And this reflects persistent concerns about the impact of the Otley Run, including antisocial behaviour, public nuisance, and so on. So crime mapping and the community feedback confirm that this section of the Otley Road experiences high level of alcohol-related incidents and pressure from licensed premises further north. So the sale of alcohol in the main part of Headingley has an impact on the full length of the Otley Road, as this is the route that people follow when they're participating in the Otley Run. In addition, there are further premises along that route. There's some stretches of shops and so on that could apply for a premises licence, and including this area into the CIA, we strengthen the case for more stringent conditions to try and mitigate the impact of the sale of alcohol. We do have some options here. Because this is a significant change to the Headingley CIA, we would normally advise that we should go out for a second consultation. And I think in this case, I think it's especially important because we didn't receive any responses from Headingley businesses to this CIA. So we would like to do a targeted consultation in Headingley, not just with residents, but also with the businesses through Pub Watch and so on, and through their own internal communications channels about extending the Otley Road corridor. However, there are 3 options available for your consideration. So we could maintain the existing CIA boundary, which extends from Wheatwood down to the original Oak. We could approve the extension and implement it immediately, or we could approve a targeted consultation prior to implementation. The extension would reinstate the link between Headingley and Hyde Park. So in conclusion, the CIA is well supported by residents, ward members and businesses. The only matter really to consider is the extension to the Headingley CIA.
Thanks for this, Sue. And yeah, overwhelming public support for extending the CIA in Headingley. I just want to remind people that where the CIAs are, so the sort of Wheatwood, there are 2, aren't they? There's the Wheatwood one, and then there's the Hyde Park one.
Yes,
Yep. So I'm just, it's fine. I know where the boundaries are. So the Wheatwood one goes down to, if you know Headingley, down to the original Oak and all of that part of Headingley, and goes all the way up to the start of the Otley Run on Otley Road, which is Woodies. So, and the Hyde Park one covers all of Hyde Park, the centre of Hyde Park, the student area, but actually incorporates Hyde Park Corner as well. So the pub there and some of the businesses. So there's a gap within the CIAs on that bit of the Otley Run where there aren't that many licensed premises. There's the what's the bus? I want to call it the book club, and then there's the Wetherspoons on there. Given the overwhelming public support for extending the CIA, I asked for it to be considered as an option for us to be able to have a vote on whether or not we should implement that now. However, the legal advice that I've received is that this it would be highly unorthodox to do that, and that actually this should be a consultation with businesses and allow businesses to have the opportunity to have some input. As the suggestion for extending the CIA wasn't in the consultation. The consultation was the consultation that we always send out, and any emerging themes that come through that we usually go to consultation. So I think we could lend ourselves in trouble if we decided to just go with the recommendations of the public and decide to implement or extend the CIA now. Hence why the suggestion, which is better in line with our legal obligations as a council to have a more thorough consultation, is on there. I'll open up for questions now. Okay, so we'll go straight to the considerations then. So maintain the current Headingley CIA boundary, which is A. Approve the extension and implement it immediately. B. And C. Approve a targeted consultation prior to implementation, which is likely to be 6 weeks, is my understanding. Councillor Haig.
It's just a technical question here. So in order to, whilst we're going out to further consultation on the extension, do we need to improve the maintenance of the current boundary, or does that carry over?
That would carry on.
Yeah, I think this is it needs dealing with, doesn't it? Because I go to Headingley every Friday night, and but but not in fancy dress. But and I'll just tell you a little story, because very briefly, in Old Woodley we had a room full of about 100 80-year-old women, and I started telling a story about the Otley Run, and I got halfway through and thought, shall I continue? But I did, and I told them, anonymously of course, about the chap who said, oh, this is dreadful, because one day I opened my curtains and found 2 people having sex against my car. And one of the old ladies turned to a neighbour and she said, oh, look at them. So it's a bit of a, you've got to be careful that you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. For instance, if the Otley Run was abolished tomorrow, the place would be decimated. Pubs would close, businesses would fail. But I am in favour of definitely having a consultation with regards extending it.
Yeah, thanks for that anecdote, Councillor Buckley. Interesting. Licensing committees are getting more and more risque every session, aren't they? And that's probably a reflection on me as chair, actually. So, yeah, look, there's a CIA... Yeah, I'm just talking, Ed. You can come in a second. There's a CIA in place already in Headingley Centre, obviously, and that's been in place for a long time, whilst the Otley Run has been thriving. So I don't think it would be a risk to the Otley Run to extend the CIA. But I take the point. It's an important part of the cultural mix in our city, and I think as a committee we've always supported the Otley Run for for students and locals and things like that. What we're concerned about is people being bused passed in from all over the north of England, and you know, thousands and thousands of people descended on a small, what is a family area, well, mix, but certainly lots of families live in their area of Leeds, and it's changing the character of it, and I think that's the concern that's been expressed through the consultation. Ed.
Thank you. Yeah, apologies. I thought by the sound of your voice you were just wrapping up to say, and now we can move forward. Good. And apologies also that I don't have an interesting story like Councillor Buckley. My question was just about the scope of this quick consultation, because if we just talk to the businesses, is there not every chance that they'll say, no, we're fine as we are, whereas surely we need to also talk to the residents, because they'll probably go, brilliant, yes. But maybe I misunderstood.
No, we did. We would follow Section 5 of the Licensing Act, so we would consult with residents, people that represent them, businesses and the responsible authorities. So it would be a full consultation, but it would just be targeted on Headingley.
A, B and C, I won't read them out again. A, B and C, can you indicate with your hands in the air, please? Yeah, that looks unanimous. Thank you. And okay, we'll move on with recommendation number C, and in which case we shall now move on to agenda item number 9, which is the date and time of the next committee meeting, which is Tuesday the 27th of January 26 at 10 a.m. And please stay seated as we have some refresher training, but thank you for your contributions to the licensing committee.